can't hear me, please do type it in the chat. Say, I can see you. And if you can hear me, then also type that you can hear me. I know technology is sometimes our friend and sometimes not so much our friend. Thank you, Vanette, for letting me know you can hear and see me. I see someone else in the chat room or in the room, Jalissa. You can hear and see me, and you can see the slides. Fantastic. Um, let me see if I could put this in more presentation mode and not disconnect anyone. Can you guys see my entire screen, or you see my face, you see the chat, and you see the slides, and also do you see the sidebar of slides as well? I don't want to distract. No sidebar. Fantastic. Good. I don't want that to distract you guys. So hello and welcome. So glad that you guys are joining us. We are talking about back to basics nonprofit development. I am going to let you know a little bit about me, a little bit about Be More LLC, and we're going to get right into the training because I have a lot of information to share in such a short amount of time. I like to know a little bit about you guys as well. I want this to be super interactive. I want engagement. I want to hear from you. Um, could you guys tell me really quick what are some of the main things in terms of nonprofit development that you want to get out, that you want to learn about, that you want to know? You type that in the chat. I'll make sure I make a little side note and try to make sure that I address those as well, in addition to what agenda I have. I definitely don't want this to be one-sided. If you hear something that resonates with you, absolutely please let me know. If you have a question, feel free to write the question in the chat. If you are curious about something, if someone else in the room says something and it resonates with you, then definitely talk to each other. This is meant to be not just a situation where there's one person who has all the information and knows everything, but people in this room. I want us to be a community that we can learn and build and grow together. If there's anything that anyone has seen in the recent events with what's going on in the state of the world today, you know that we are needed now more than ever. So I want us to be able to build and grow and learn from each other. You know nothing about how to start a nonprofit? That's fine. You are in the perfect place. Um, so if anybody else has any questions as we go along, just type them in the chat. So we're going to get right into it. Before I tell you all about nonprofit development, one of the first things I want to tell you about is what is Be More LLC. Be More LLC is an organizational development agency. It focuses primarily on new and emerging nonprofits to help them build from the ground up. With everything from capacity building to how to file your paper to how to get funding and all of those types of things. I'm going to be your instructor tonight. And one of the things you're probably going to want to know is you're going to want to know a little bit more about your instructor. Who is the person who's leading this class? That was actually meant to be a video that I have up there with a picture with my nostrils flaring. It's actual video, but I haven't quite figured out with the technology how to get the video to play. So I'm just telling you about what nonprofit development is. And then to learn a little bit more about me. So the organization, Be More, is headquartered in Baltimore, Maryland. We have distance learning courses that support development of people from all over the world. Another thing that you should know about me is that I love God, I love family, and I love service. And I credit much of what I'm doing right now to my grandmother. That's why you see on the side when the person asks me who I am, one thing that I know that I am is I know I'm Bertha Mae's grandbaby. And my grandmother was the first example to me of what service looked like, what compassion and love look like. Nonprofit development is something that's very near and dear to my heart. Everything from my educational background to my volunteer work to my actual work. I've worked domestically within the U.S. I've worked on domestic nonprofits as well as international nonprofits. And my Be More movement is you. You are my movement. People who want to start their nonprofits, grassroots organization, people who want to make an impact on the world. That's who I serve. That's who I engage with. That's who I connect with. That is part of what I definitely feel and know in my heart that I was put here to do. And that's part of why Be More LLC exists and why I am having this training. So that's a bit about me. Before I go on into saying more about who this is for, tell me something about who is in the room. Where are you guys from? Where's everybody from? What city and state is out there? Columbia, Maryland, Baltimore, Maryland. My people's in the house, my neighbors. Columbia is practically a neighbor. Katy, Texas, by way of New Orleans. All right. Vinette. Is that how I say it? Am I saying it right? Vinette Ellis, or is it Vanetta? Is it Vinette? Oh, yay. Okay. I'm glad I got it right. So now I want to get into more about who this is for. So you could kind of do a check and see if you're in the right place, if this is in alignment with you. And who this training has been developed for is people who want to make a living at making a difference. One of the big, I'm going to talk about one of the big misnomers about nonprofit development. It's also for new and emerging nonprofits who need to jumpstart their vision, and for people who want to start a nonprofit but have no idea where to start. Jalissa asked the question, what's the difference between domestic and international nonprofit? The basic difference is domestic just means it's within the US, and international, it is outside of the US. That's basically the only difference. Is nonprofit sort of like social entrepreneurship? I'm gonna get into that. Make sure you still post your questions, even though I'm not answering them now. If I don't answer them now, that just probably means I have a slide for it later. And I'm going to talk about the difference between a nonprofit and a for-profit in that. No problem, Jalissa. Thank you. Ask as many questions as you like. And also, this is also for people who are tired of the state of their community and they are ready to do something about it. People who are tired of the spending their days at the end of someone else's strings, and they really want to do work that is meaningful and fulfilling to them. So this is kind of what this is designed for. This is who this is for. So if you hear yourself in any of these, then you are absolutely in the right place. I also encourage you to, yay, I know, right? My people. And also, I encourage everyone to connect with other people in the room. The Facebook group that we have is a virtual community. You don't need to necessarily go there right now, but I definitely want us to go there after this class, kind of like the after party, and just kind of introduce ourselves to each other. Let each other know what we're up to. There's going to be homework, so you're probably going to want to talk to different people in the class about some of the homework if something stumps you. And one of the things that I want people to know is that starting a nonprofit is not a one-person job. You need a team. You need as much encouragement as you can get. You need as much hands as you can get, as much understanding, because nothing will bring up more of your challenges, of your issues, of your fears than starting something big and new and doing something that you have never done before. So definitely, absolutely connect with the community. Now, the course objectives. This is what you guys will get by the end of tonight. By the end of tonight, you will have a clear understanding of the difference between a nonprofit and a for-profit. You will also be clear on what it takes to be a nonprofit leader. And I'm going to give you some of how you can identify to see if you have some of those things. Some people are thinking about starting a nonprofit. They don't know what it takes to be in that particular role. And you need to be able to see, you know what, I have this, but I don't have this. And it's not a thing to say that you necessarily need all of these things, but you definitely want to have more of them than you don't. And if you see that you don't have some of them, what you want to do is work on cultivating those things in yourself. Also, you're going to understand the role of the executive director. as well as enhance your understanding of laying the nonprofit foundation and what that kind of looks like. So here's how you be here's how to be successful in this class. You're gonna want to come to class mentally and physically prepared and ready to hit the ground running. I try to give a little bit of time at the beginning because I want you guys to have a sheet of paper and a pen. I have a pen in my hand because I take notes and I write stuff down. And even though this is all laid out and I have other notes, I'm taking notes by what you tell me that you want to know about, so that I can make sure that I either put it in this lesson or I could make sure that I put it in another lesson. So I always have a pen, I always have a sheet of paper, and I encourage you guys to definitely be diligent about that. Make sure that you take the time to mark this out on your calendar each week. Hey, from Baltimore, a lot of Baltimore in the house. Make sure that you take the time out to put this on your calendar. Decide that your journey in this particular direction is worth your time. It is worth your energy. It is worth your effort. Definitely say hi to other people in the room. Donovan, Vanette, let me go up, Jalissa. I hope I'm saying that right. If it's not Jalissa and if it's Jalisa, then let me know so I can say your name right. Vera. Also engage with others. That link that I put in there for the Facebook group, please do. We're going to go to the after party. Jalisa. Okay, thank you. So we're going to go to the after party afterwards, after this, and we're going to meet and mingle and get to know each other. And I want everybody to introduce themselves in our private Facebook group. Also, be sure to fully engage in this entire process. Take advantage of the fact that it's in real time. I know there's probably going to be some days that something come up, your kid's birthday party or something else, church meeting or something else that you have where you're not going to be able to make it to a session. But as many sessions as you can make it to, because it's only 4, I would say try to do that because you're in real time. You can ask me real questions. And you also get to engage, like Jalisa and Donovan are getting to know each other and talk and mingle and that sort of thing. And do the work. When you come in, this is not just a situation like if you really want to see the difference, if you want to see the change, if you want that, then it's going to require you to actually do the work. That's why I have in-class assignments. That's why I'm having homework so that you could develop and build on this as we go. Okay. In addition to that, just know that there's probably going to be some people who only watch the recording, and you'll probably see them come to the Facebook group later. Show them love because we're all in this together. We're all into making the world a better place together. So our agenda, we're going to be talking about you first, you knowing your role because your nonprofit starts with you. There's transformation that you're trying to, the role of being in a nonprofit arena requires transformation. That's why you do that, to make a transformative change. But the thing about transformation is going to have to start with you, right? And there's about 4 levels of transformation. There's the transformation that you need to make in yourself to take on something that big and that huge, to develop into a leader, to cultivate those skills. So there's this internal self-transformation. Then after you transform within yourself, there's also, you're going to transform your organization because you're setting the tone and the culture and the attitude of that organization. Then the 3rd level of transformation is you're going to want to transform your community and your community to potentially have a bigger impact on the world. So that's why I put your nonprofit starts with you. If you're filing it, if you're setting it up, if you're establishing the paperwork, if you're getting the board development together, it starts with you. So that's why we have to talk about you first. Again, you're going to learn about the difference between a nonprofit and a for-profit. I'm also going to tell you the different types of nonprofits and some other different names for nonprofits, give you some pros and cons of it, as well as dispelling some myths. And we're going to do some seed planting and some in-class assignments, as well as I'm going to give you the homework. Okay? So now the first part, let's look into you. So I got this from the Morgan Company. It says the original writer of this was William J. Morin, but I found it to be so true, and that's why I'm sharing it with you. And so the attributes of a nonprofit leader, they identified 12 attributes of a nonprofit leader. Nonprofit leader has to be a self-starter. They have to have passion for the organizational mission, the ability to accept and motivate others. They are servant leaders, and they are able to deal well with conflict. So that's just, oh, it's actually 6 of them, but it doesn't show them all there. But that's right there on the screen that you guys can see. That's 5 of them. Tell me, is there any of those that you see yourself more in? Like, which one of those of the 5 that are up there on the screen that you say, yes, this is me? That's what I want to know first. So if you see yourself in one of them, then put the number of the one that you see. 4. So Vinette deals very well with conflict. That's good, because you're definitely probably going to see some of that coming up. Donovan also deals well with conflict. 3. You're a good servant leader. Oh, sorry, you're right. Servant leader is 4. My apologies. So Vinette and Donovan are servant leaders. And 3 is the ability to accept and motivate others, which is huge. Actually, very huge. Now, which of those out of the 5 that are there that you see and you're like, I really need a little bit of help around this? Out of the 5 that you see displayed there, out of self-starter, passion for the organization, which one of those that you feel like you need a little bit more help from, and you probably need to develop in yourself a little bit more? You're good at 3 as well, Donovan. So what are the ones you have a challenge with? You have a challenge with being a self-starter, okay? Anybody else have a challenge with any of the ones that are up there? Vinette has a challenge with 5. Don't deal very well with conflict. Okay. You avoid conflict. Yeah, I can relate. Vinette, you probably like me. I don't want no problems. I don't want any problems. Okay. Number 1 is your biggest challenge, Donovan. That you're a self-starter. Okay. And Vinette says, can't we all, I'm with you. Can't we all just get along? I just want to kumbaya. And servant leaders tend to want to be a kumbaya. And there's times where that could be very good, because you're probably the person who builds consensus, who gets people together, who connects with people, who like a lot of you said, number 3 and 4, you have the ability to accept and motivate others, as well as being a good servant leader. You're more concerned about what you can give to others than what you're going to get from the organization. So that is a common thing. I'm going to go on to the next ones. So here are some other attributes of a nonprofit leader. Whew. Now here's the ones where we tend to have the most challenge with. So Vera says, conflict is a part of life and in any organization, but I hate that area. People take things too personally. It's hard to give construction criticism to those who don't want to grow. It is. Number 6, I actually have to go back and look at number 6, and I'm going to do that and give it to you. While I'm going back to get number 6, you guys look at what we have up there. And I want you to tell me first which one is like, I'm good with this one. And then also we're going to go into which one do you have the most challenge around. I knew what you meant, Vera. I knew what you meant. I knew you meant constructive. So let me go and look at slide number 6 while you're doing that. So Donovan says, yes, 7, 8, and 1 are the most challenging for me. 7, you know what? 7 is the one that gets everyone. Donovan, you are not alone. 7 is the kicker. Right? 7 is one of the biggest ones. 8 is definitely one that people definitely need. 8 is big. Number 9 is the one that you're good at, ability to listen. Yeah. The thing is, and this is one of the things about the exercise like this. Let me go ahead and I'm going to put in what 6 was since it was cut off from the screen. So that's what it said that 6 was. Think strategically, but implement tactically is what number 6 was. The thing about this particular aspect of the exercise is to be able to increase your self-awareness as a leader. And when you increase your self-awareness as a leader, then you know you're able to identify certain gaps and you know who you need on your team. And then when you know who you need on your team, then you can strategically get who you want as your board member. Sorry, who do you want as part of your staff? Who do you want to play in particular roles? And what smart leaders do is, I'm going to tell you what not smart leaders do. What not so smart leaders do is they hire weaker versions of themselves. So they go and they get the person who is, oh, this person is just like me. But they don't challenge or threaten my position. So that's the person I'm going to get. That's what not so good leaders do. They get weaker versions of who they are. They just get people who are like them, who think like them, who act like them. What you really want to do is get stronger versions of who you are not. So once you identify the ones on here where you're like, I'm not good at this particular thing, and I think you should write those down. The ones where you're like, you know what, I don't have financial acumen. I'm not really good at fundraising skills. Whichever the one that you're not good at, that is who you should be looking for. That's who you want on your board. You add 6 to your challenges. Okay, be the 6. You can see the big picture, but don't always see how to get there. I think that is a common thing also, Donovan, with visionaries. Visionaries see the big picture, right? We want to change the world and save the world. And what we need is somebody on our team is like, okay, you want to save the world, but let's see how we're going to do that. What does our process look like? What does our steps look like? 6, I put it up there earlier. Dillis, I'm going to put it in there again. That's 6. And that actually happens a lot, Donovan, in terms of like we see the big picture and don't necessarily see the process. And that's why this aspect of self-awareness of starting with you is so important. Because if we don't deal with us, if we don't deal with us as leaders and we are leading the organization forward, then we can't feed back into our organization. We don't see the gaps. And we can't fix other people when we're blind to our own challenges and we don't know who to get on our team. So one of the first aspects of it is to do this check, to get this self-awareness, to see, where are the gaps? Where do I need to fill in? Do I need to increase my financial acumen? Do I need to get someone who has really good fundraising skills? How am I on my ability to listen? Am I good at making sound judgment? Am I persistent? If I'm not persistent, I might need a cheerleader on my team that when I'm ready to give up, I need them to help me out. Do I have the stamina? So you guys told me about the ones 7 through 12 that you have challenges with. What are the ones that you're awesome with? What are you good at? Like you're like, this is me. One person mentioned they have the really good ability to listen, which is really good. Vanette is good at 9, ability to listen. Jaleesa is good at 6 and 10. Sound judgment. Oh, sound judgment is not something that you can't just like pay for sound judgment. You can't like take a class to get sound judgment. So that's fantastic that you have that. Because there's some things that you can pay. Financial acumen, you could pay somebody who has better financial acumen. You could pay somebody with fundraising skills, but sound judgment, that's tough. Vera is good at 7 and 12. You're good at 7 and 12? Stamina and financial acumen? Discernment. Yes. I feel like I want to write. Yeah. Yes, yes, yes. Yes, discernment is so huge. It is, and it's not something that everyone necessarily has. You deal with finances and people all day, every day, all day, every day. Okay, I say every day where I'm from. Okay, so now that we got a little bit of peek into ourselves and time and kind of raising our awareness in terms of what does it take, what are those parts that we're missing, and then I being able to identify that and say, okay, this gives me a little bit of insight on who I need on my team, right? So let me tell you a little bit more about your role as an executive director. This is basically, in a nutshell, what your responsibilities are and what your kind of overall position description is. One of your first jobs is to identify, recruit, and orient board members. Who do you want on your team? How am I going to know who I want on my team? First of all, you could go back to that other slide and you could see where am I having challenges with? And that's going to help you to identify who you want on your team to fill in those challenges, right? You're going to also appoint other people, department heads, managers, delegate responsibilities, analyze operations to value performance with company or organization, staff meetings, objectives, determining areas of potential cost reduction. Excuse me, program improvement, policy changes. You're going to need to, what's a good word, Donovan? Tell me what the good word is. Program improvement, policy change, direct plan, implement policy, objectives, activities of organization, ensuring operations, all of those things. And this is really just the overview, right? Direct, plan, and implement. Those are really good. Like, if you get nothing out of what your role is, direct, plan, and implement. Maybe a little bit less on the implement once your organization gets up and started. But in the beginning, you're in a leadership position. They're going to be looking to you for direction. They're going to be asking you what's the plan. And nothing is going to happen without you implementing. So those are very, very key things. And this is part of the reason why we have to start with you, right? Now we're going to get into the next part, which is dispelling some of the myths. Tell me, what was some of you guys' takeaways so far about the first portion where we talked about starting with you in terms of what it takes, where you are, what do you know that you need to do, and what did you get out of that first section? Because I want to make sure that this lands, that is such a big part, starting with you. My hair is doing whatever it wants to do right now. What do you understand from those other slides? And I could go back to them if anybody needs me to, just let me know. In terms of what it takes to be a nonprofit leader, where you are on that trajectory, what skills do you need to develop, and what type of people do you need to get on your team? What have you identified there? While you guys are typing, I'll go ahead and go back to the other slide. No problem. So the question was, when you look at, we started off with starting with you. We're looking at the 12 attributes of a nonprofit leader. Of these slides, of the attributes, sure, I can go back. Of these attributes, what have you learned or identified about what skills you have, what skills you need to have, who do you need to have on your team? This particular aspect of it is about increasing your self-awareness in terms of your leadership type. Not really your leadership type, but just like what it takes and where you might need to increase your skill set or hire someone else to do that. Any light bulbs go off there, like, oh, I need to get someone to do this, or oh, I need to really think about that. Bennett says she didn't realize all the attributes needed, just had an idea of what you wanted to do. I mean, I think that's so honest, Bennett, and I really appreciate that, because sometimes we just know what we want to do. We don't necessarily know what it takes. And that's okay to start with, right? Because I definitely believe that if you are given a vision, God will give you the provision, right? And I also know that God doesn't necessarily call the qualified, but He qualifies the called. So if it's something that you feel called to do, all of that is gonna come together. If it's been seeded in, I know that's right. Let's have church for a minute. If it's something that's been seeded in you, you'll get that information. There's some things that we've said, that we've identified here, that are things that we can't buy. We can't buy sound judgment and discernment. You really can't. We could. I mean, there's some things that we can buy, and there's some things that we can't. Um, Vera says, my team has to consist of people who are able to bring these skill sets to the table. Each person will have their own strengths and weaknesses, but together we'll make a valuable team. Yes. Yes, yes, yes to that, Vera, because starting a nonprofit is not a one-person job. It is not. Jaleesa says, I need to do better with maintaining relationships in order to trust people to delegate. I'm used to doing everything on my own. I totally understand it and get that and can relate. I could totally relate. What about you, Donovan? And then I'm going to go ahead and go to the. Oh, yours is up there? Okay. Sorry, I missed it. Oh, thank you. Thank God for you, for people out here doing the work. Vera Della, I'm sorry, Vera says, Jaleesa, delegation is key. It is, and it's hard. It's easier said than done. It will help you to reorganize your own strengths and weaknesses and allow you to grow. Plus, you won't be so worn out mentally and physically. Yes. Yes, that is very true. That's why it's so good to have it's so important to have community, and I hope you guys connect on the community. So now let's talk about three of the biggest myths of nonprofits, right? And I actually didn't put these in any like order of like importance. I need to put my hair up, as you can tell, because it is touching my neck, and I'm just not feeling it touching my neck right now. So if I look a little crazy, it's for the cause, cause I'm hot. That is so true, Donovan. So the three biggest myths about nonprofit development. One of them is ownership. And here's what I mean by that. A lot of people say that they want to start a nonprofit because they want to own their own business. The thing is, ownership of a nonprofit, and here we're getting into some of the difference between nonprofit and for-profit as well. No one owns a nonprofit, right? It is considered a public trust. In a for-profit, you can have a sole proprietorship where you own it solely. You could have an LLC where you're a solopreneur. You can have an incorporated. You can have several different levels in terms of ownership when it comes to a for-profit. But with the nonprofit, even though you started it, you do not own it. It is considered a public trust. So no one owns a nonprofit. That's one of the biggest myths, and people get those mixed up. And sometimes you'll hear people say, a nonprofit is just like a for-profit. They're the same thing. Not really. They have some things in common, but they're not really the same thing. And if you get caught up thinking that they're the same thing, you're going to make some really big mistakes. So ownership. You own a transportation service? Okay. Tax status. One of the biggest myths about tax status is that they don't have to pay any taxes. That's not true. They're exempt from most taxes. So, and that is certain one. So I'm going to go into actually on the next slide about the different types of nonprofits. So one of them is tax status, that they don't have to pay any taxes. That is not true. They do have to pay some. So if you start a nonprofit and you get, IRS come for you and you're like, why are you coming for me? Because there is something that you have to pay. You just don't have to pay most taxes. There's like business taxes like that you don't have to pay. And also the third one, that's the biggest one, that is the most annoying to me, that's the myth about nonprofit, is that they can't make a profit. And I understand the confusion because the name is nonprofit. So it literally means no profit. But really that word just comes from the IRS categorization of it as a nonprofit. The truth of the matter is nonprofit, can, do, should, must generate revenue. You must generate revenue in order to keep your organization alive and sustainable. The difference is between a nonprofit and a for-profit, and I might as well go to the next slide since I'm talking about this. Well, actually, I'll stay on this one. The difference is what happens to the profit. So with a for-profit, those profits go into the stockholders, right? They get it as a bonus, or it just goes into their pocket. With a nonprofit, the extra profit has to go back into the organization. So it's not that the organization can't make a profit. Not only can they make a profit, they need to make a profit. And if they don't, their nonprofit will fail because it does take money to keep the wheels greased. That is one of the biggest myths, that they can't make a profit. You can, you should, you must make a profit. You must generate revenue. The only difference is what happens to the surplus, what happens to the profit, and how that profit is allocated. Okay, the three biggest difference between a nonprofit and a for-profit. I kind of touched on it earlier, but I want to talk about it a little bit more. If you have a question, then feel free to type it in there while we're on this part. One is the stakeholder versus the stockholder. So with a stockholder, they are the people who own a controlling interest in a for-profit company or for-profit organization. They have controlling interest. That's why that profit allocation, when the organization makes a profit outside of after they paid everything, they get paid. Money goes in their pocket. They have stockholders. In a nonprofit, you have stakeholders, which is a little different. They don't get money. They do have a stake in your organization, but their stake is an interest. For example, if I had a youth development organization, my stakeholders are going to be the people who care about the mission of the organization, the people who have a vested interest in that mission being fulfilled. For example, in my youth development organization, who cares about the youth? Teachers care, they're a stakeholder. Parents care, they're a stakeholder. The community care, maybe juvenile justice system, maybe the YMCA, maybe something else in that organization. Those are the stakeholders, and they become increasingly important when you talk about community engagement. So that's the difference. So let's get into some of the pros and cons. I had my little cheat sheet here. This thing does not let me go and look at it. So what I am going to do to get to the pros and cons is I'm going to go to my little slide right here that you guys can't see to tell you a little bit more about the pros and cons of having a nonprofit. So pros, you get tax exemption on most. You get tax exempt. Most of the taxes are exempt. And the reason why I say most is because you still have to pay taxes. Also that you can apply for more grants than a business can. And the reason why I say you can apply for more grants is because businesses, especially small businesses, minority businesses, women-owned businesses, they can apply for grants. For-profit does not mean that you can't apply for grants. You have less grants available to you, but a nonprofit could apply for more. One other major pro in terms of nonprofit that I think is really huge, and I think it bears noting, is the sense of fulfillment. If this is really what you are meant to do, if this is the calling of your life, if you know that you are not going to be happy, pleased, or satisfied until this is done, that is a huge pro. At least in my opinion, that is a huge, huge thing. I'm a person who I'm very goal oriented. And if you're anything like me, you've probably had a lot of things in your life where you have successfully achieved goals and fulfilled goals only to realize that those goals did not fulfill you. And this is something that will fulfill you if this is part of your journey. Cons. The cons of starting a nonprofit: you are subject to stricter regulations. You don't own it. A lot of people feel like that's a con because they want to have that sense of ownership over it. The public actually owns it. And the more money that your organization makes, the more complex your documents process are. And then the aspect of the sector. So the sector has several names and it can sometimes be confusing. So nonprofits are also considered NGOs, which is just mean non-governmental organization. It's sometimes also called the volunteer sector, just because there's a lot of volunteers. And it is also called the charity sector. Let's see, it is because I thought the funds had to be all spent by the end of the year. No, Vanette, that's not true. That the funds do not have to all be spent. You want to have a reserve if you have a nonprofit organization. I'm glad that you got that clarity. You want to have a reserve. The thing is that just has to go back into the organization. So that could be go into reserve and then just be spent in the next fiscal year. Glory to God, that's my whole thing. I feel like if I don't fulfill my calling, then my life would have been in vain. I feel you so much, Donovan, like you don't even know, like on so many levels. I definitely feel that. And I keep feeling like time is running out. It's probably just pushing on you because you know it's huge, because you know it's heavy and it's gonna pull. It's like that thing that when you're doing the thing, when you're not doing the thing that you know you've been called to do. That does not go away. You know, especially when you go out in the world and you see these underserved populations and you see people need support and help, and it's bothering you, and it's bothering you for a specific reason. It ain't bothering everybody. Everybody, like, you know, it's not bothering everybody. It's tugging at you for a specific reason. So just put that out there before I get on my little preacher soapbox. So now it's time for some in-class work. I hope you got your pens and your piece of paper. We're about to do some in-class work. So I'm going to give you guys time to get your pens and piece of paper. And I actually want to, while you're doing that, I'm going to go over the types of nonprofits. So the most popular kind is the charitable kind, the kind that you guys are probably most interested in. And keep your eyes open and pay attention to this because this is going to come up when you file for your paperwork. They're going to ask you this. And you'll probably know it actually anyway. Charitable organizations, the type that most people are interested in is the 501c3. That is the charitable organization. One distinction of them is that they cannot lobby. They can't support a particular candidate. And 501c4 can lobby, can support a candidate. They have a specific issue. They can impact policy. And as a matter of fact, they're probably more like the advocacy organizations. Like they're advocating for a particular thing. 501c3 is like their educational institutions, like schools, public schools. I go to a HBCU where I'm getting my doctorate in social work. That is a 501c3. I think most people think of nonprofits as they're small. And I'm glad you know it. I'm glad you found that to be good information. Thank you, Vanette. You know, a girl is trying to get her doctorate degree. You know what I mean? Moving up in the world and things. So the 501c4 is the one that can advocate and they can affect policy. But again, 501c3, medical institutions, hospitals are considered 501c3s. Churches are 501c3s. Um, Girl, you know what? Listen, I'm waiting for that doctor title. I'm working on earning it. This time next year, no later than 2018. Definitely, I definitely want to be Dr. Rushing by then. So, also 501c5s, labor unions like the Teamsters, they're nonprofit organization. So think about this when you think about what you want to do in the world. What type of nonprofit are you going to be? 501c6, they could lobby for things. They're also trade associations. 501c7, social recreation. People don't think of this as a social, again, people think of nonprofits as they don't have any money, but there's a lot of organizations that we think of as like being big money that they're nonprofits. Country clubs. Country clubs are social recreation. There are plenty of country clubs that are nonprofits and they have golf courses and tennis courts and all of these other type of things. Those are also nonprofits. Donovan, if you want to lobby and advocate to affect policy, so here's the thing about that. You can focus on an issue as a 501c3, but you can't support a specific candidate and you can't lobby. But you can if you are a 501c4. If you want to be like a change agent, like you want to, that's the work you want to do. Let's say if you want to do something that puts a new law in terms of, let's say, how police disarm its citizens. If you want to do that, if you want to work on legislation and impact that or support a particular candidate, that is 501c4 work. That's what you want to do. Is it more difficult tax-wise to have for-profit and nonprofit portion of your business? Would you suggest having two parts or sticking to the nonprofit? Well, it depends. It depends. There are some organizations that are social enterprises that are set up in a way that they still have a cause, but they're still a for-profit. For example, I think Trader Joe's is one, is a social entrepreneurship. Tom's Shoes, for every shoe that a person buys, they donate a shoe to someone who needs a shoe. Um, what are some other organizations? There's a couple social entrepreneurship. So maybe what you really want to do is do a for-profit that does some charitable work, if that's something that you're interested in. It really just depends on the structure of what it is that you want to do. It depends a lot on who you want to serve, how you want to serve them, and where the money is. For example, if my issue was I want to save the dolphins, dolphins don't have the money. So I might create an organization where they have people who care about the dolphins. If my thing was I want to help medical students study abroad, we may say medical students might have the money or institutions might have the money. So it has a lot to do with who you serve, how you serve them, and where the revenue, where the resources of the income is going to go to in terms of whether or not you're going to do a combined situation or if you're going to pick one or the other. Can you have a 501c3 and a 501c4? You can. They just have to be completely separate. You can. Eradicate recidivism. Oh, if you want to eradicate, that's definitely a nonprofit thing, and you could go that around. I would think in terms of eradicating recidivism, I would think the best way to do that is 501c3. It depends on your approach to eradicating it, what you feel like the cure for eradicating is. Like, do you feel like you just need to increase education, or do you feel like we need to provide more opportunities, or do you feel like the solution is that the laws are too strict? So what you feel like the solution is going to impact that, right? Jaleesa wants to open up a holistic care center, but since insurance won't cover alternative care, I want to be able to still serve those who can't afford my services. That sounds like a nonprofit that is a 501c3, and there is money in health. There is money in health and education. I think those are probably the nonprofits that probably get the most funding, health and education focused organizations. Providing opportunities, housing, education, entrepreneurship. Yeah. Yep. So that's 501. That sounds like 501c3, Donovan. That's what that sounds like. So does everybody have their piece of paper and their pen now? Because we're about to get into the in-class work. So if you have a paper and a piece of, yes, Donovan, great. Donovan's ready. Who else is ready for the in-class assignment? Yes, the net is ready. Who else is ready? Bear is ready. All right, so let's dig in. The first aspect that we are going to look at, we're going to talk about the vision. We talked about you, now we're going to talk about the vision. I want you guys, if you haven't already, you're about to do it right now. I'm going to give you plenty of space and opportunity to do it right now. I want you to work on, write out what your vision is. I know that seems like a lot of pressure if you haven't done it already. Don't worry, it's not going to be graded. But we have to start thinking about this. You are the leader, you are starting this organization. What is your vision? And what I want you to write, it doesn't have to be super deep because we're going to work on it and we're going to develop it. And by the end of this 4 weeks, you're going to have a solid, good vision that you can share with people that's going to make sense. But we're going to work on the vision and the mission. So all I want you to write for the vision really is what is the transformation that you want to see? 1 to 2 sentences. That's it. So you could write it on a sheet of paper and then post it in there in the group if you want. But we would like to see your vision, wouldn't we? Let us support you and help you develop your vision. You have an instructor here, you have a community here. The people who are going to be listening to the replay later, they're going to catch it later when they finish doing whatever they're doing. They're going to come back and they're going to have seen your vision or heard about it. And I just want 1 to 2 sentences of speaking to the outcome of what is the change you want to make in the world. 1 to 2 sentences, doesn't have to be perfect. So my vision, I'm going to go ahead and write out what mine, and this isn't, again, we're just writing 1 sentence about what's the transformation that we want to make in the world. And to speak more and to talk more about what a vision looks like, it is what you can see. It is what you are looking forward to. It is what you are aiming for. It's the transformation that you want to see in the world. So mine would be a world where every nonprofit has everything it needs to fulfill its mission. That's my vision for the world. I want every grassroots organization to have what it needs to be successful. I have been called to use my experiences to help eradicate activism. Great, Donovan. So your vision would be the eradication of recidivism. Or even put more simply, Donovan, so does everyone know what recidivism is? And let's just pretend like everyone doesn't, Donovan. I want you to put that more simply and not use recidivism. Say it in a way that my grandmother with a 3rd grade education would know what you're talking about. If you are here listening to the replay, get your sheet of paper out and you go ahead and you write down your vision. You want to work in that area also? Okay, Vera, write up your own vision statement for that. Mentoring, directing program for single mothers and their children from fetus to college. Okay, tell me what is the vision for that, Vanette? That sounds like that's what you're going to do. But what is the end result? What is the transformation that happens with that mentoring program? Like if I was doing a bread um, providing food to the homeless, I would say a world where no one is ever hungry again, or a Baltimore where no one is ever hungry. What is the end result that you want to achieve? So that's your vision. I'm gonna I want to help people maintain a holistic, healthy and wealthy life. A healthy and wealthy life. Okay? A healthy and wealthy life so they could do what? What's the a healthy and wealthy life just so they can live longer, or so they could be happier, or just increase the quality of life? So that's the vision. Write the vision and make it plain. I read a book that said write the vision and make it plain, y'all. I don't know if y'all read that book, but it's a book out there that say write the vision and make it plain. Live the lives that we're called to live. Okay. A world where a single mother will not feel alone in raising their children after being discouraged from aborting their babies. Tell me about the end so they won't feel alone. What is that? What will be the end result of them not feeling alone? Speak to the end. What happens when they do feel alone? I want to teach repeat offenders how to stay out of prison. All right. Make sure another person never goes back to jail again. All right, girl. I see you. I see you. You guys in the who are probably watching the replay, you're missing all the fun in the chat as it goes. So let's talk about the mission statement right now, really quick. And this is another in-class assignment where we're talking about the mission. So in the mission statement, statement, and you're going to hear this again about the mission statement. There's 3 C's to a money-making mission statement. You might want to write this down. A money-making mission statement is clear, it is concise, it is compelling. So clarity. In your mission statement, and think about this because I want you to write out your mission statement and then we're going to fine tune it together as a community to make sure it's solid. In your mission statement, the clarity part is I will know from reading your mission statement who you serve and how you serve them. So we help new and emerging nonprofits build from the ground up. You know who we serve, you know how we serve them. We help them build. It's not a whole lot to it. It's clarity in that. Concise. Concise is not 500 words. It's not 5 sentences. 5 sentences max. It's like 3 to 5 sentences. No more than that. And it doesn't sound like you're trying to be all things to all people. So I won't hear from Donovan that he's trying to teach offenders how to stay out of prison, open up a daycare, do hair, shave poodles, save the dolphins. Because what that sounds like to other people is that this person is confused. They don't know what they're talking about, or they're trying to pull our leg in some other sort of way. So you want to make it concise. You want to, it's okay if it's hard to articulate it right now, right? It is okay because that's why we're going to put up the block and we are going to chisel it away together, Vanette. You are not in this alone. Everybody in
it's
here.
8 o'clock.
Thank you, computer. Everybody in here, including and especially, I shouldn't say especially me, but including me, wants your win. We want all of us to win, because when everybody else in here, when all of you win, I win, the community wins. Y'all in Maryland area, some of the people that are on right now. So all of us wins. So put your vision out there, put your mission out there, make it big, and we're gonna narrow it down. So it needs to be clear. I need to know who you serve and how you serve them. It needs to be concise. You're not trying to do all things for all people in your mission statement. Now, when you get to talk about your goals and your objectives and your programming and your outcome, you can go into detail. But for your mission, I need you to be concise. And your vision could be big. I just don't want you to try to be all things for all people. And it needs to be compelling. What compelling means really is it just needs to speak to the transformation, not how you do it, but the transformation. So what is the end result? The thing that speaks to transformation isn't necessarily that I have a mentoring program and hand out book bags. That's not transformation, that's process. We give out sandwiches. That's the process. What is the end result? Okay. Jaleesa, to educate and empower people to create a life worth living through service, love, and giving. Aww. I love that you have to educate and to empower. I like to educate because educate actually means something specific to me. Empower is less specific to me. A life worth living through service, love, and giving. That's a good, I think that is a really good start. That's an awesome start. We're going to work on that as a team. So make it clear, concise, compelling. And now the next part that I want us to move on to is your objectives. So write this down because you may not do it all in this class time, but that's okay because you guys are going to have homework anyway. I just want us to get in action while we have this time together. So you've written your vision, you started working on your mission. Your objectives are like, what are the 3 things that you want to do? Like with this, Jaleesa, I'm looking at educate, empower, and if you had one more, or you could just have 2, those would be under your objectives. And you would say how you do that. Educate, blah, 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 blah. You could list them. Empower, what does empowerment mean? Teach, learn, inspire. Think of 3 words that kind of sum up what your objectives are, and then you can write out what bullets you would do under them. But now, offering services to single mothers, fathers through networking, providing needed parental help in parenting, discipline, and education to curb postpartum depression, child abuse, and or abandonment. That sounds like happy, healthy families. Yeah, that sounds like happy, healthy families. I mean, there's probably another way to say it. Single mothers and fathers. So you don't have to say single mothers and fathers. You can say single parents. Through networking, providing needed parental help. Through parental support. You don't necessarily need networking. Discipline. Not sure what the discipline part would look like. Education to curb postpartum depression. Okay, Donovan says, it is our mission at Prodigal Son Inc. All right, what's your name then? To reduce prison recidivism by equipping ex-offenders with the necessary tools to succeed and become productive members of society. I love that one. I really love that, Donovan, because it is clear, it's concise, it's compelling, and it speaks to what's in it for the community also, which is good. Which is good. All right, so let's look at let's think about what your objectives are and just write those down. Another part that I want you to keep in your mind is programming. I want you guys to take this down. This is going to be part of your homework, to write out your vision statement, write out your mission statement. Even if you just, for the goals and objectives, write down 3 words that solidify what your objectives are, even if they're educate, inspire, train. provide jobs, blah, 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 blah. Just 3 words. And then I want you to write a program description under one of those. Describe that program. Use as much information as you want to describe the program. And when I say as much information, let me actually narrow that down a little bit. Use about 1 paragraph to describe what that program looks like. And then I want you to speak to the outcomes. After a person goes through this program, then what? If I have a youth development program and I hand out book bags and I give lunch and I tutor, what is the outcome I'm looking for? I'm looking for them to go to college, increase the attendance rate at school, what was Donovan's, add to be productive members of society. That is the outcome. That is the outcome. Let's see. I always get caught between the difference of a mission and a vision. Okay, I'm glad you brought that up. Donovan too, Danette too, you are not alone. So vision is what it looks like. Vision is, what it looks like. What it looks like at the end. Mission is how you do it and who you do it to. So mission is the who and what. Who you're doing it for and what you're doing. So you're going to talk about your how more in your mission. Maybe I should give you guys another example. Let me know if you need another example. They do intersect. They're not completely different. They are related. They are going to connect, but your vision is just really should be is like much more concise because you're just talking about the end results. I have a friend who she calls herself the clarity queen. And I would say her vision, her thing is never be confused again. I don't know who she serves with that. That doesn't tell me anything about who she serves. But it does tell me something about the vision in terms of the end result. So just think of the end result. What is the world that you see at the end? What is the transformation at the end of that? So think about this. This is you guys' homework. So write this down. The vision statement, mission statement, objective/goals, use 3 words. Programming, write 1 program description. And outcomes. Don't feel completely bad if you don't get it all done. This is actually part of something that usually is in this process in the normal class. I give people 2 weeks to do. And I'm going to be seeing you guys again next Sunday. So you'll only have 1 week. So if you only have part of it, I won't bite your head off, but I might growl a little bit, but no biting of the head. All right, on to the next part. So the next part that I want us to look at and talk about is research and development. This helps to lay the foundation of your organization. What do you need to be doing right now? What can you do right now to move you closer to that? This is what all of this is about. Every assignment, all of these things are about getting you closer, getting everything that's in your heart and in your head out on paper and getting you moving and in action. I am about action. The next part is research and development. This is another something that you should write down in terms to do, and there's going to be a point where this is actually going to be in play in terms of for the class. I'm going to be asking, where are you with this? All of the classes that we have together are going to build on the next class. So if you don't have some of this done, it will affect to some degree your participation in the other ones because you're going to need to pull from other ones. So, and some of you already have this particular aspect. Identify who serves the population you want to serve right now. So Donovan, who serves returning citizens? Identify who donates money to those organizations. This is really important. I hope you guys are really writing this down because this is going to be key. It's going to be very important to not just the process of this class, but you developing this organization. So many times I feel like nonprofits have their grand opening and grand closing in the same year because they don't go through this process. They go straight to the paperwork. I just want my tax cert, and you will always find somebody willing to take your money and do the paperwork. Trust me on that. After you identify who donates money to similar causes, identify potential board members. How will you identify those board members? One of the things you're going to go back to is you're going to go back to that assessment, that raising awareness about yourself in terms of where are you strong and where are you not so strong and where do you need some support. Then another thing you're going to do before you get to the paperwork, before you do anything else, you're going to write out your program description. What does that look like? You're going to conduct a needs assessment. You're going to basically like a SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats or challenges. And you're going to look at that and see where you are. How are you positioned? Who else is out there serving you're serving? Not necessarily as competition, but sometimes as collaborative partners. Because if Donovan is doing something with recidivism, and there's another person who's working with returning citizens to help them register to vote, we serve in the same population, right? So we should be able to partner on some things. And also knowing who are the stakeholders. Remember earlier we talked about the difference between stakeholders and stockholders. And with stakeholders, they have a vested interest. Who has a vested interest in family services, Vera? Who has a vested interest in happy, healthy families? Those are the stakeholders. Hope you had a chance to write that down, because this is really going to be important. So far, before I get into our recap, what were some of the biggest, I would say, things that you just got out of that last part that you're like, oh, I didn't know about this, or oh, this is good? And you could just type it into the chat if you're have a free hand and you're not writing down. Got it, Vera? Research and development was a big part for you. Tell me more about that. Different between nonprofits. And some are still writing. So while you guys are doing that, I am going to go to the recap. So this is what we just covered. We covered the 12 attributes of a nonprofit leader, identified where our strengths were, where some of our challenges were. It makes you think about or define who you are serving and why. Great, Bonette, because we have to think about that. Who you're serving, why you're serving them. There's so much that I wanted, and we're already like over the hour time span, but there's so much more to pick apart with that, to get a deeper understanding, and it's good stuff. We went over the difference between a for-profit and a nonprofit, some of the pros and cons, dispelling the myths, planting some of the seeds, the vision, the mission, the objectives, research and development. We did some in-class assignments, and we have homework. Yes, I have to define who I want to serve because I want to help everyone, and everyone needs to be healthy. Yep, yes, you definitely need to narrow down everyone. You need to narrow down everyone. Narrow that down. One of the good things, though, is the next class that we have coming up in the designing your brand story helps with that. It helps you to identify them, because because when you're designing your brand, if that still starts with you, but you also have to know who you're speaking to. So that is definitely going to be good for next week. And again, next steps, next class will be how to tell your brand story. I want you guys to have your vision statement, your mission statement, identify your 3 objectives, and write your 1 program description. And in the meantime, I definitely also want us to connect through our virtual community so that we can support and love on each other. Here is the link to the virtual community. You can post what your mission statement is in there and ask other people in the group, how does this sound? Does this sound clear, concise, and compelling? What do you think of this idea? Or any other questions that you have, but just be there for each other to support and guide and help each other. Like to know that we are not alone um, in this process, in this development, that we all are here to make a difference and make the world a better place. And before we close out, I'd like to know, look, my whole picture, I had a whole picture situation right here. There's a whole nice little picture right there. It's not even there. See that? Technology. Anywho, I want to know what were your aha moments? What were some of your takeaways? And what were some moments of clarity? For everyone who's watching the replay, please do, when you get to the Facebook community group, write down your aha moments, your takeaways, and your moments of clarity. I will work on making the replay available within the next 24 hours. I think I'm going to go ahead and post it on the site. It'll be at, let me write down the site, the actual location, because this won't be available for everyone to see. This will just be available for the people who sign up for the class. This link that I'm giving isn't even like really available to everyone. Vera says her takeaway was the 12 attributes. What was a good starting point, something to really focus on. That's good. That's good because you're going to need to know that as you reach out to other people. Vanette, you're telling us nonprofit can make a profit. I'm glad you got that. Yes, nonprofit can make a profit. Yeah. And Aha's takeaways, moments of clarity. Define who I want to serve, the delegation and the types of nonprofits. Fantastic. Fantastic. Focuses on board members whose strengths are my weaknesses. Yes, Donovan, you need an 18. You want an 18. And I'm going to get more into, I think our 4th week is getting the right people on the bus, board development. And we're going to go take a deeper dive into that. This is kind of to set the stage for that, to get to know who you need on your team. Do you get a salary? Yes. If you are executive director, the CEO, the person who started, yes, you do. You absolutely get a salary. Now, the board members don't get a salary. They don't get paid. Boards are volunteer. And we're going to get into that again on the 4th week. Focuses on board members who train, yes. So this is where you guys will be able to look at the replay. If there's anything that you missed or you want to go back and look at it and say, hey, I missed that. Also, because you know this is not a one-person job, another thing that you may want to consider, there may be someone else that you feel like, oh, you need to listen to this, or you need to watch this, or you need to pay close attention to this. You can let them know about how to access this course so they don't miss out. They'll miss out on this particular live session, but there's a lot of people who our class is actually maxed out in terms of I actually have space for 25 people online at a time, and everybody doesn't come online at the same time. A lot of people are just waiting for, they're going to look at the replay. So I feel like I'm Already on my way by being in this class. Love you so much. Thanks for your time and passion. Oh, thank you so much, Donovan. I appreciate it. It's my pleasure. It is my pleasure. Is it be more real life for the link? The whole class was a aha. Thank you. So yes, that link above, BMI real live. So there's one that's just real live, and that's actually on the site. That's just letting people know about the class. But this one right here is just for you guys. Like if you go and you click on it right now, I don't know if you're watching from there or if you're watching from the click meeting location. But if you went to that site, this is actually just like a private link for you guys. If you just go to the site by itself, like if you just go to bemorellc.com, that link is not available. This is just available for you guys. And that is it. Because you guys signed up for class and everybody didn't sign up for class. So thank you everyone so much for your time, your talents, and your information. You guys give me hope. I was having a really not so good time with the challenges that's been happening recently in our country. And I was just feeling really sad about it. And I needed some time away. But hearing all the stuff that you guys want to do and how you want to make an impact and a difference, it's just like giving me hope. And it just reminds me that there are people out there that are doing good. They may not get the coverage, they may not get the accolades. And so I just want to do everything that I can to equip those people. And before I start crying, I'm just going to let y'all go and say good night. Thank you again so much. And until our next class, continue to serve more, do more, and be more. Good night, everybody.